Hello, I'm
Hi.
Cynthia Myers-Morrison. Hi, this is Karen Gormley. Karen is the treasurer for foodaddictioninstitute.org, and I'm going to invite her to share a little bit about her recovery story and how did she come to be involved with Food Addiction Institute. Take it away.
Oh, thank you, Cynthia. Yes, well, it's interesting because my food recovery journey for me occurred in my middle age, let's say that. And that was because I was fortunate enough to have a mother who was, I think, ahead of her time. I was born in 1957 and I was the youngest of four, but even before I was born, my mother had an interest in food and nutrition, and and my mother and father also enjoyed gardening. And so growing up, uh, we were my mother had a budget for food, and but she always served really good food. She wasn't a gourmet cook, but she was a really solid cook, and she had worked in the 1930s for very wealthy people. And she noticed how they ate. And she noticed that there was always a green vegetable, there was always a yellow vegetable, there was always some kind of a protein, and there was usually a salad. And sometimes these came all together, and sometimes they came in courses. And it was one time she made a comment to me that she was very fortunate that she worked in a house where the staff ate the same things as the the people that owned the house. And so she was always just, I always was exposed to really good, healthy food. And, we got a breakfast, we got a lunch, we got a dinner, and sometimes a dessert. But it wasn't like an open kitchen in our house. Like pretty much after dinner, we were done. And so I was a relatively active kid, and so in my youth, I didn't have any problems with weight. My father was a little overweight, and even then, when my father turned about 50, the doctor said that he should slim down, and he gave my mother a low cholesterol diet, and she adapted all of her food plan to his low cholesterol diet. And they both lived to their late 80s, and they were both very healthy. So I think I was very fortunate in that way. My problem with food, perhaps, showed up in different ways as a youngster. I remember when I was a child, if one of the neighborhood mothers had a treat for all the kids in the neighborhood who were playing in the yard, I would be finished first, and I would be looking around to see if there were any extras. And yeah, and I always ate very quickly. I always finished my meal first, unless I was being persnickety and didn't want to finish what was on my plate. And I always finished my desserts first. But that wasn't too much of a problem. Then, when I was 14 years old, I got my first job. And my first job, believe it or not, was at an ice cream and sandwich shop. And I was thrilled because I think for very cheap money at break time we could have anything we wanted on the menu. And then when I got a license and I had money from working, one of my pastimes with my girlfriends was going to eating places, and still didn't put on the weight, and I was fine. And of course, like many girls at that era, I looked at the magazines of the time. 17 comes to mind, and a horde of others, and, just comparing what my body looked like and what other people's bodies looked like in magazines, what my classmates looked like. And even then, I had a kind of body dysmorphia. I thought that there were parts of my body that were either much bigger or much smaller than other people, and that I didn't look right. And oddly enough, now that I look back at my high school and college pictures, I say, I was a perfectly normal young woman. And what was I thinking? So I went through college the same way. No real problem with food. I didn't gain the freshman 10 or 15 or whatever it was. And then graduation came and I went out in the world and started to live my life. And I worked as an office worker mostly. I was an accounting major, and I was desk bound most of the day. And yes, again, I continued to eat the way I always ate. And so I would remember that I lived close to where I worked. And so I left the house without breakfast, but they had a great cafeteria. So I went there in the morning, got my breakfast. Then at 10 o'clock, you had to go up for coffee break. And then at lunch, I would have like a full meal. Or I would go out to one of the shops in the area and buy fast food. And then I would go home and make myself a dinner that was, sometimes healthy, sometimes not. And that's when the weight started to come on. And that's also when the dieting started. So I am 5'2" tall. And probably I was between 115, 120 pounds in high school. And then I remember getting to be 125 pounds. And I was like mortified. And, so diet and get down to, around 120. And then pretty soon my weight would go up to something like 135. And so I remember certain ages associated with certain weights. So I remember when I was in my 30s, I got married and I was mortified because I had to buy a size 10 dress and I weighed 130 pounds. 2 years later, before I got pregnant with my first child, I was mortified because I weighed 140 pounds, 5'2". 3 years after that, when I was 34 and I had my second child, I weighed 150 pounds. And then I had my sixth child. Then when by the time I got to 46, which is when I decided to do something other than dieting for my weight, I was about 183 pounds. And, it would have been bad enough if that had been just like a straight line incline, but it was not. I like to say it was like the stock market. It went up and down and up and down, but the trend was ever upward. So when I was in my mid-40s, I had been considering what I would do. I had joined gyms. I had joined diet clubs. I had bets with friends around weight loss. I had knuckled down and bought, if there was a popular diet book out there, I bought it and I tried to apply the diet to my own life. As I remember one particular book, I had a niece who was younger than me, but not too much younger. She's about 12 years younger. And we both decided to do the Scarsdale diet. And we had done it successfully for a week. And then we were together in my mother's kitchen, and my mother said, they were having a fundraiser at the church. And so I bought such and such a thing for dinner, and it wasn't on the diet. And my niece and I just looked at each other and said, yeah, we'll have one. We could not wait to eat normal food. So at 46, I went to one 12-step meeting, peer support meeting, whatever you want to call it, in my 30s, but it wasn't my time. But in my 40s, I went back age 46. And by that time, there was more than just the weight going on. There was depression. There was just a lot of stress around everything in my life. But I believe that the foundation of it is that I was out of control, and it wasn't just a question of not eating right or being unhealthy, even though I did have high cholesterol. And at age 46, I was having knee problems, difficulty climbing stairs. I remember having difficulty. My children were still relatively young and they swam at the local Y. And I had difficulty getting in the pool, getting down and getting into the pool. I had difficulty getting down on the floor to play with my children. And so at that point, I went to a meeting. I was given a food plan by my sponsor, and I was just desperate enough to do it, in terms of I did whatever my sponsor asked of me, and everything she asked of me was reasonable. She asked me to plan my food in advance. She asked me to weigh and measure my meals. She asked me to commit my meals in the morning. And she asked me to do the other disciplines of the program. And I was amazed. First of all, I was amazed. The first few days that I started to do the program, I said, this is weird. I just got abstinent and I have this headache and I'm feeling sick to my stomach. And I had to talk, my sponsor had to talk me through a couple of days because I was feeling very ill. And then after I got through that part, it wasn't torturous to be on this food plan. It was enough food. It was food I liked, and I was happy with it. And I started to get a sense of food neutrality. And, one of the other benefits of the program is it was a program that not only dealt with the nutritional aspects of my disease, but also the emotional and the spiritual part of my disease as well. And so I did that work in that area. And also, I had been, by age 46, at the point where I needed mental health professionals. And so I had a psychiatrist who prescribed for me. I had a psychologist that worked with me. And I had a sponsor in the food part of the program. I had a sponsor in the step part of the program. And I also met a woman who was interested in women's issues, and I got help from her. So it was really, I saw that my disease was more than just about the food. It was physical, it was spiritual, and it was emotional. And I did fabulous for 7 years. And then, because I was doing fabulous for 7 years, the depression, although it would come back every now and then, it was much less. I had a lot more energy. I started getting promotions at work. I really dug into my career, as well as began to enjoy my family more. And then one day, I was asked to go to a remote location for work, for a meeting, and to lead a 3-day meeting. And at one point during that 3-day meeting, I was writing up the notes from the meeting, and there was on the table some snacks that I, as the leader of the meeting, had ordered for everybody else. And I picked up a granola bar. And then I picked up 5 more. And then I was off to the races for 5 years. And it happened so quickly in one sense and so slowly in another sense. So over the course of those 5 years, I don't think that I lost the mental and spiritual benefits of the program, but I certainly lost the physical recovery. I gained back all my weight and more. And I kept trying to get back on, and I was moving around to different offices for my job, and I would try to go to 12-step meetings, but I had no regular pattern. And finally, 2.5 years in, I happened to speak to that woman's coach that I had been seeing. And she said, oh, I called you by accident. I'm sorry. And I said, well, it's good you called because I just wanted to tell you I'm in relapse. and I've gained an awful lot of weight and I don't know what to do. And she told me about a treatment program that was very affordable, and it had the advantage of being a short term of in-person work, followed by a handoff, basically, to whatever peer support group I found effective. And I said, oh, that's great. Then I looked it up online and it was some ridiculously low cost for what it was. And I was like, oh, that's too expensive. So I didn't go until 2.5 years later. I was at work one day. I called my husband and I said, I have to do something. And I called that recovery place. It was October I called, and it was just till December that I went in for treatment. And that was in December of 2016. I got abstinent during that just 7 days of treatment. And then I was able to go back to my support group and work my program again. But it was kind of a miracle happened at that intensive treatment program. The person who was leading the group said to another participant, you seem to have a pattern of relapse, and it might be really good for you to take our professional training program, because it would mean that you would have to come back periodically to be in intensives, first as kind of a participant, but then as kind of an intern, and then as an associate. And that would keep you coming back. And at that time, I said, oh, gee, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do this work and really help people, but I'm very gainfully employed in another job. And A, I have another job, and B, I don't think I could take the pay cut. Lo and behold, 6 months later, my company had a voluntary layoff, and I was near retirement age. So I decided to go to HR and volunteer myself. And, I ended up taking that retirement, signing up for that training program. And so basically I got paid for 9 months at full salary. That was my payout. And I got to start that training. And what that led to was so I took that training, which was very experiential and hands-on. And then I took the INFAC training in Iceland as kind of an accompanying piece to that. And I began to do food addiction coaching in the United States. So I have a certificate from the European Union in food addiction counseling, because they don't really give you one in the United States. It's not really an official certification like that. But I also have a certificate from Acorn, which is now called Shift, to say that I've completed their professional program, and I have worked in the business end of it ever since, and I continue my 12-step work. Bill Wardell, who founded Acorn, which later became Shift, at that time spoke to another person at the intensive and said, would you may be interested in being on the board of the Food Addiction Institute, because we're always looking for board members, and it would be really helpful, and you'd help the cause, and it's recovery related. And that also went into the back of my mind. And shortly after I got my food addiction counseling certification and I had some time on my hands, I called the Food Addiction Institute and said that I was willing to, or that I was wanting to work for them. And if they still needed board members, I'd be willing to be their treasurer, because I had been a financial manager for a Fortune 1000 company. And I had experience in many aspects of accounting that I was sure would apply to charity. And so that's how I got to be on the board of the Food Addiction Institute and its treasurer. Yes. And so now it's just a real joy to do all the things I get to do. in a week, or in a day even, because I still do my work with my peer support group. I do work with clients. And then I also get to do work on the higher level job of having food addiction be generally accepted by the population of the United States and the world as a disease that is treatable, and also encouraging the formation of treatment programs, whether like the one I went to, whether longer term or shorter term or remote or whatever, but based in those treatments that actually work. So sometimes, I talk with people who don't feel that they need to do the kind of plan that I need to lose weight. And that is very true. Some people are not primarily food addicted. They may be just normal folks that, like me early in my eating career, they have a sedentary job, they don't get enough exercise, they're not watching their nutrition. And if they kind of get that in balance, they don't have to do what I do. And I also know that there are people who have an eating disorder, which is different from food addiction. And they may not have to do what I do. But I'm a real advocate for the panoply of possibilities for people with an eating disorder, overweight, underweight, or compulsions around food, that they know all the possible diagnoses that they could fall into, that they get the correct diagnosis, and then they get the treatment that's appropriate for them. And that, to me, would be a pretty cool thing if that were available, not only here in the United States, but around the world.
Karen, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I loved hearing your story. I loved hearing the things you do on the board. Could you tell a little bit more about the treasurer's position in case there are people out there that want to follow in your steps? Come be an assistant.
Yeah. So it's interesting because the board of directors, of course, needs various functions. We have people on the board who are highly trained and very credentialed in food addiction treatment. I am not that person, but what I do have is a knowledge of how finances work, and that's very valuable. And also, it's a relatively small nonprofit, and so I do a little bit of everything. I pay the bills, obviously. I take charge of checking account. I justify my spending to the chairman of the board and the other board members. I help with the creation of the budget. It's a collaborative effort. I also do my bit for fundraising, and some administrative things. And because we're a small group, I've also had exposure to what the social media group is doing. I've also excitingly been involved with our push to have the APA accept food addiction as a disease of substance use, and to have that be in the DSM. And so I love the job because it's a many and varied position. I work with incredible people who have amazing knowledge, and it's really a joy. It's really a joy. And if there's anyone out there, go to the website, make a donation. We'd love that. It takes money to do the things that we try to do and advocate the way we do. And as we go on into the future, we hope to be able to perhaps fund studies that document different treatment programs and their effectiveness, and also, persuade policymakers to make changes to the way health insurance companies work so that obesity, eating disorders, and other food use disorders are covered by insurance so people can get the treatment they need. Because certainly obesity is foundational to many other diseases that we see that have become endemic, especially in the United States, and for which food addiction can be a primary cause.
Thank you so much. And as you've said, that if there's someone out there that's interested in being related to the Food Addiction Institute, come to our website, foodaddictioninstitute.org, and sign up and give us your name and explain your interest. And very often there's a niche that would be just right for you as a volunteer. And then over time to consider if you want to be a board member, because there are a number of us who are volunteering. And as we age out, we want other people to age in.
Yes, yes. And no matter what your background, I mean, if you're a lawyer, if you're an administrator, if whatever, we need you. We need you in more ways than one.
So what, Karen, is your view for the future of food addiction and food addiction recovery? What would be your hopes and dreams?
My hopes and dreams would be that people would get the diagnosis that is right for them, that it would become common knowledge in the medical industry that food addiction is real and that there is a solution. And that solution may or may not involve surgery or medicine, but it can also, maybe the first thing is that we don't go to the surgery or the medicine first. We look at the food addiction aspect and treat that. And then my other view is that there would be no shame. It's not about having a certain body size or a certain look. It's about good health. It's about good health and feeling well in mind, body, and spirit. And also, no shame in having a disease that, although it may not be curable, it is definitely treatable. And there are hundreds of thousands of us walking around as a living testament to that, if not millions.
Now we can only see your shoulders. Have you changed from
Yes.
the person that was? Oh my goodness, yes.
So I am actually at the same size that I was in high school.
That you were when?
In high school.
In high school. That's thought to be a real benchmark. So congratulations.
Yes,
Oh, congratulations.
yeah.
And that's not the only change, correct?
And my doctor, I met my current doctor 6 months before I went into treatment. And she said, oh, you have a weight problem that you need to look at. And I said, yes. And I'm going to go to a program for that. This was in July of 2016. When I saw her in July of 2017, she was floored and continues to be floored. Every visit that I come in, we step on the scale and I'm above the same weight.
Isn't that amazing? And what are the other additional benefits of achieving normal weight, quote unquote?
Yes, well, mental health issues have cleared up amazingly. And one of the things that I had from childhood was anxiety. I also had a tendency to depression early on. And I don't know, Cynthia, you might not be as old as I was, but when I went to my mother as a kid and said, I think I'm depressed, my mother said, kids don't get depressed. I am not there anymore. I am happy. I am healthy. There is a lot of joy in my life. I take things as they come, and it feels really good.
Oh, Karen, that's fabulous. I'm 76, so
Yeah, we got it. So you know what I'm talking about.
yeah, I do know what you're talking about. And I don't know that I used the word depression at that time, but certainly there were times in my early adolescence, pubescence, when I did not feel the world was right. Maybe I was right, but the world wasn't right. So that was another way of describing what you're talking about. Thank you. I want to say so many thank yous for your service to Food Addiction Institute and for the very competent work that you do as treasurer for our organization. And thank you for this time with you and sharing your story and allowing our friends and fellowship to get to know you a little better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
I'll see you at the next board meeting.
Absolutely. And for those of you that want to donate, all you have to do is go to foodaddictioninstitute.org and press our donate button. And we will soon have an opportunity to have membership and different levels of membership that allow for different access to different aspects of the data sets that we have, things that you may be interested in for a variety of different reasons. So come join us, at least get on our subscription list for our newsletter and find out what's happening in the food addiction world, because there are big things happening right now. You want to be a part of it. Thank you so much, Karen, and many, many, many thanks. Good day.
Thank you.